Awesome. And I hope everyone can hear me. Welcome everybody to our webinar. It's our first one-on-one webinar, African Overland Tour, so I'm super excited. Just a quick background. I'm new, but I'm so excited to be hosting all of you, teaching you about overlanding. And honestly, most of the information is going to come from my amazing colleague, Lee. So Lee, without further ado, go ahead, girl.
I was going to say, you might be new, but you feel like you're already part of the furniture.
I do. The other day I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I've been here for like 6 months already.
Oh, it really does feel like that. So just a background to me and my experience. I've also only been with African Overland Tours just over a year now. Really exciting journey. Best decision I made moving into this business, because honestly, it's a company, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, that really cares about people more than just sales. We're not a sales business. We're actually a people business. We're very passionate about what we do. Previously to that, I worked in the travel industry, and I have actually been in travel close on 20 years. I know it's hard to believe because obviously I look so young, but
that is crazy.
Close on 20 years, and I have lived and worked overseas as well. I've lived in the UK a few times, and Mishka, as I was saying to you, every time I've come back to South Africa, I've gone and lived there, and I'm like, I just can't get it out of my system. I love it.
Home is where the heart is.
Hello, Jess.
Hello, Jess.
So we were just chatting away about home is where the heart is.
For those of you who don't know, Jess is our GM, but she's honestly more than that. She is our fighter, our healer. She is there for us in every way possible, and she's honestly just the best. And she makes everybody's life so much easier. I don't know how she does it, but I'm glad that she's here.
Well,
this is why we hide you, Mishka.
And I've come in here, and you can actually see I'm blushing because I thought that I was just going to be joining on the side, not co-hosting.
You are registered as a co-host. I'm so sorry. I probably should have been, but welcome anyway.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's so wonderful to have all of you here with us.
It really is. I'm so excited. Cool. So we've got a couple of topics to cover that hopefully will give you a general idea, a little bit more in depth of what overlanding is, what routes we can offer, as well as what routes would work best for you if you are a seasoned traveler, if it's your first time traveling to Africa, if you're young, if you're old, if you're in the middle, whichever one works for you, we'll be able to help you. And this is honestly just, it's a guide. Consider this your new audiobook on overlanding. So without further ado, I just want to chat to you, Lee, about what is your favorite overland route in Africa and why?
I think it's so obvious because it comes to me straight away, and it's so cliche. But I'm going to stick with the Cape to Vic partly because I have traveled on that route, but also I feel that it's like the perfect combination of like a variety of things, like landscapes in Namibia are completely different to Botswana. Your wildlife experiences are incredible. The cultures are different. So I just think it's got all in one what you're like really looking for. I think it's a good starting one for people that haven't done an overland tour before. I think once they do that, they'd probably want to do more. Of course, like the people who have the time, and not everyone does, to do the full route and go all the way up to Nairobi would be absolutely incredible. Because like Malawi, you get like the Zanzibar, so you get the beaches, so you got bush and beach and just everything all in one. That would probably be my favorite. But obviously we can't all travel for 42 to 57 days. So definitely, if you're time constrained, the 20-day Cape to Vic.
Definitely. And if you were to do the 20-day, or even if you were to do the longer one, what would you say is the most memorable experience of that?
Well, I think everyone's got different ideals. Like I've spoken to people who are maybe less interested in wildlife and want to see more culture, or people that are more interested in photography but they want to take pictures of the scenery, not always wildlife. So it really depends what you're looking for. Most of the people coming to Africa want to see the wildlife because it's incredible and you don't get wildlife like this anywhere in the world. So yeah, I mean, for me, like highlights would be things like the Makoro in Botswana, you know, where you're sitting on that little dugout canoe and you're watching the elephants drink from the water. And I mean, it really doesn't, you can't sell it in a picture, but Victoria Falls is absolutely incredible. Like, blown away. I went there years ago, and this last time when I went, it had so much more of an impact on me than it had the first time. And I was like, do I like waterfalls more now, or what happened? I don't know. The first time I went, but I was just like, one of the people in the group was like, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Like every viewpoint, the falls just get better. And then, you know, like I say, like the beaches in Zanzibar and everything. So there's so many highlights and like important things or different things that are important to different people traveling, that they get everything that they want along that. I mean, if they're really adventurous, they can tack on and do the gorilla trekking as well. So it really has everything.
It really does. And I mean, if you have the time to spend to do that 57 or the longer ones, I mean, imagine seeing all of those. Like, and it's different experiences every day. Like some people may think that, okay, fine, I'm going on an overland tour. Each day is going to be the same. I mean, there's one thing that anybody can say about a safari, and it's that no safari is the same. No drive in South Africa is ever going to be the same. It's going to be different no matter where you go, whether you're in the towns, whether you're in the bush, whether you're viewing the experience is completely different. So I think that's one thing that really stands out as a highlight for me, is that there's just so many things to see. There's so many things to do. Yeah, it's just everybody has to come to Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely the kind of experience that you won't duplicate anywhere else, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's a completely different travel experience.
And I mean, you've traveled abroad quite a bit, so you're able to compare Europe and Africa pretty easily, hey?
Yeah, I've done a lot of Europe. Having been in the travel industry for so long, I've been very blessed to have had a lot of travel opportunities. So I have done Europe, and I love Europe, like absolutely, and different parts of Europe. I love different countries. I love the different cities. I love the architecture and the history. But it's still very different. It's like Africa, to explain it the best way, it kind of speaks to your soul. It's like a soul-moving experience. Like, you feel so connected, and it's probably just the being out in nature, seeing all these things, you know. It's just it's an incredible journey. It's definitely something that people should do once in their lives, and more than once if they can. Because like you say, not every experience is the same.
True. Would you recommend Africa as a first destination for somebody who actually hasn't traveled extensively?
I really would, especially if they are going on an escorted tour, because they're like an overland tour, because they will be as a group, and if they're not that experienced and they haven't really traveled much, at least when you're in that group, you've got someone to guide you along the way. So you're stopping in the cities and the towns, and they're saying, you know, this is a good place to go and withdraw money from an ATM. This is a nice place to go and eat. So you've got that guidance, but you also get a little bit of independence, because you can choose what you're going to do when you get there, you know. I think it's just an all-in-one experience, and especially for somebody who really loves animals or wants to learn about a different culture, it's very different, you know, to other cultures in other parts of the world. So it would be a good first choice, I would say.
Awesome. I mean, so I obviously have traveled like within Africa and South Africa, but like I've never traveled abroad, and obviously wouldn't be able to compare differences. So for you to give us that insight is really, really great. And thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Would you say that there are any routes or destinations that people don't really know much about of, and you would suggest that they go on that sort of destination?
That's a really good question, and would I say routes, or I don't know if I'd say more destinations. For me, people that haven't been to Botswana really should, because I can't believe, honestly, I didn't think I was going to like Botswana as much as I did. Like, so I think everyone should at least try to go there. But it is probably a little bit more popular. It is known for the Okavango Delta and Chobe, but I think maybe people don't consider ending a trip in Zanzibar. or, and extending and having that beach stay. It's also very, very interesting island. I mean, the beaches are beautiful. A lot of different cultures, because they had a lot of European influence as well. So it's very different. But anything, and I think we'd spoken about this before, but anything like going to Uganda and not necessarily seeing the gorillas, but enjoying the other wildlife that's there, So there's a lot of different things or different places people can go, and they don't have to do something that's maybe like, if they don't want to do gorilla trekking, they don't have to, you're still getting to see everything else. It's the flora and fauna in those areas are just so unique and different to other parts of the world, and even other parts of Africa in comparison. So yeah, I think all of that. Personally, I would really like to travel through Malawi, but I do know that the route from Vic Falls through to Zanzibar that goes through Malawi is actually a really long journey.
How long is it?
Some of the days are very long. I mean, you could be in the overland truck for 10 hours or more,
Oh,
depending
wow.
on the road conditions and the time of year. So I think it's a good point, actually, that now that we're talking about that. I think people need to be aware that an overland tour, you will have very long days on certain parts, because there's nothing in between. So they have to cover that ground to get to that next destination. Not every day will be that long. They do stop regularly, so you do get breaks. And they always stop for lunch, and sometimes lunch will be something like setting up tables on the side of the road, or at a service station where they've got like some picnic benches out. They'll set up the tables and you'll have lunch there, and then you'll keep going, to the next destination. So some of the days are like that.
It's a labor of love in sort of a way. Like
it is.
It's
it
a
really
soul.
is.
I like to call traveling in Africa a soul-altering journey. And it also shows you that, like, if you're traveling through the form of overlanding, it is sort of a labor of love. I mean, you're probably not going to really call it a holiday.
No, it's a holiday you need a holiday from. So you will feel a bit tired, but you would have seen so many things. I think it's worth it. Like, it's, even though you're going to have days when you're just exhausted or shattered because you got up early and you got to the next place late, you still would see so much and experience so much. And and no day is the same, and you never know what you're going to what's going to happen, because you could be driving through a park and there's an amazing sighting of lions, and that delays your trip. So it's impossible. People will say to me, how long are each of the days? And I'm like, well, I can kind of give you an estimate, but I can't tell you exactly because I don't know what's going to happen.
Each day is different. I mean, speaking of delay, there was one time where I was on a game drive, but it's sort of the game drive leaving the park, because we needed to get to the gate so that we could get back to our car and go back home. And on our way, we spotted this cheetah with her cubs, and they were so cute that, like, we were like, you know what, we only need to be at the gate by 12:30, so let's just follow this cub. I think we followed this cubs and this cheetah for about a good 2 hours, and it was just so fun to see them interacting and having fun together, and you just get lost in it. Yeah, you just get lost in it, and you're like, you know what, I don't need to rush anywhere. There's like no sense of time when you're on a tour or when you're visiting Africa in Malawi.
Exactly. And and like I say, anything happen. The guide stopped to get firewood for the one night, because every night you have this bonfire and you're sitting under the stars, and it's incredible. Like, because a lot of these places, like if you think of Namibia, there's no other cities around some of these camp areas. So like when you're looking, the stars are insane. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. You feel like you're looking through one of those telescopes where you've got you see pictures on TV or on the internet, but you actually see stars like that when you're sitting in Namibia. So anyway, he stops to get firewood, and the tire got stuck in some soft sand, and we weren't going anywhere. We were properly stuck.
No.
And there was just this it was like a little kiosk where they'd bought the firewood from, and the guys, they were running to their house that was just up the hill, fetching other blocks of wood and things, so that, like, flatter pieces that they could put under the tires, try and wedge it up. And I was standing there and I was watching this whole thing, and this is such like an African thing. The next second, the safari vehicle that's driving in the opposite direction stops, turns around, comes back, and they start tying up our truck to the safari vehicle so that they could use that vehicle to help pull us out. And I was like, it's such a, like, Africa people are so friendly and helpful. That's what they will do. Like, they will stop and help each other. Like, we were, another time we're driving through the Okavango Delta, and we're in the 4x4, and there were some tourists that were broken down, and our guy stopped and said, do you guys need help? And he was like, no, we're just going to change the tire and we're fine. But everybody is willing to help.
Yes.
You know?
And I think this also attests to the fact that lots of people have this perception of Africa being, not safe, not the best place to travel to because of its safety. And it really shows you that the hospitality of Africans and the people that we are, we're just there to help. And if you could touch on that in terms of the safety of Africa and what your thoughts are on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a solo tourist, I think you would need to maybe do a little bit of research before you just go off if you weren't on a tour, because, you'd want to know the areas that you are going to are safe. I mean, for example, I've just been to Greece, and I've just been to Athens, and the Uber driver told us in the vehicle from the airport to our accommodation, you maybe don't want to go to this area at night, And those sort of things are useful because you don't know, walking around the city, you could land up in that place. And not because it's particularly dangerous, he's just like, it's not a very nice area to go to, So those are things that are useful through conversations. And when you're on the tours, those are things that the guide also would make you aware of. Or if you're starting your tour at a certain point, the reception staff at the hotels would make you aware of those things. So I think it's like traveling anywhere, really. You have to kind of do the research.
Mm-hmm.
Not everywhere is going to be dangerous, but you also just have to be aware, because I think I said this to you the other day, I've heard of more people getting pickpocketed in Europe than people I know in South Africa, and yes, there's crime and stuff, but we are very aware. And, that it's just about being...
When you go to any place that's new, you sort of you just stay vigilant, So
exactly, and it's about being travel aware,
Yeah.
With those things, yes.
And obviously overlanding and traveling in a group, you're generally more safer that way than
absolutely.
I mean, anything could happen if you rent a car and choose to do your safari on your own and drive to the places by yourself. You don't know what could happen. I mean, yeah. And also with regards to more touching on the idea of safety for solo female travelers, we obviously get a lot of inquiries for that. And being a solo female, I think you have traveled as a solo female before.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
It was a little bit daunting the first couple of days, and I think it always would be, especially because I was camping and I was a little bit nervous about setting up tents and taking down tents and things like that. And I remember my partner, like the day I left, he was like, I'm so incredibly proud of you. Like, dropped me at the airport. He was getting emotional, and he was like, this is such a big thing to do on your own. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm an adult, I can manage this. And it actually was so lovely. And then I started the trip in Swakopmund in Namibia. And I hadn't met up with the group yet. And I arrived there and I was like, well, I can't just sit here at the guest house and wait for the group to arrive. I have to kind of go out and do these things on my own. And it was so daunting having to walk around the city that I've never been to on my own, but that's travel, And when I met up with the group later and from the next day I was obviously with them, it was still like a little bit daunting the first day or two because they had already been together for a few days. So a lot of them had already made those bonds and connections. I mean, a few days in, I mean, I still chat to people in that group, we're still in communication. Like, so cool. You just make friends for life. So traveling solo is actually, it will get you out of your comfort zone and you will make amazing friends doing that. And there's nothing wrong with joining a group. In fact, it's probably the better way. And that's probably why we have so many solo female travelers traveling through Africa, like on our overland tours. It's wonderful. It gives you that confidence, of not having to worry about the logistics of going from place to place and just meeting connections. I had a girl earlier this year who got off one tour and a week or two later she was booked onto another one again. because so she wasn't ready to go home. She wanted to do it.
Wow, that is so awesome.
It's really awesome. Like, it's really, really awesome. Like, she loved it so much. She's like, I need to go on this one because I met someone on this trip that had already done that, and I want to go and do that now.
That is just such a wholesome experience. It must have been so cool for somebody to say that to you and be like, oh my goodness, you want to go again? Sure.
She hadn't even finished it. She had a few days left, and she was already emailing and saying, I want to do this one.
That is awesome. Like, that probably made you feel so good.
You just know it's a good match then, like, that she did the right trip for her, and she wanted to do it, like, she wanted to go again. She was like ready.
That's also what I've noticed, that you call yourself. You don't call yourself a travel agent. You call yourself a matchmaker.
Matchmaker. It's 100%. I think. I mean, I must be the world's best matchmaker. Don't trust me with relationship matchmaking. I don't know if I could do that, but definitely like holidays and things like that. It's about taking the time just to get to know the person, because an overland tour is not suited to everyone. And I think we spoke about this as well before, like different trips are suited to different people. Some people won't want to do camping. In fact, the majority of people won't want to do camping. It can be exhausting. We can talk about that if you like, but putting up a tent every day and taking it down in the mornings.
Oh, I know that I'm probably not keen on camping. Don't let that sway anybody. Don't let that sway anybody's perception of camping. But if somebody had to ask you, why would you prefer a camping tour over an accommodated tour, what would your answer be?
So there's benefits to both. And some of the overland vehicles, actually, they accommodate both. So they'll have accommodated and camping guests on the same vehicle. Some tours purely just camping, and some are purely just like accommodated depending on what they're offering. So the thing I noticed with the camping, the truck parks in the campsite. So you don't have to carry your bag that far. Your tent's like, once you've set up your tent, you carry your bag from the truck, put it in your tent, it's right there. And in the morning, you're just packing it up. But you do have the admin of putting up and taking down a tent. And you do get better at it. The first few times, obviously, you learning, and then you get very familiar, and it can become quite fun. Like, the people on the trip with me, we were all like racing each other to put up and down our tents, and
You end up winning. Did you win?
Sorry?
Did you win?
Did I win? I think on the very last time, yes, because I woke up early and put my tent away. In fact, the other guy opened his tent and he's like, how's your tent folded up already? But yeah, it is a little bit daunting doing that on your own, and especially as a solo female traveler, because you're like, gosh, I have to put up this tent. But everyone does actually help each other. What I will say is what I noticed on the very first day, and I was like, oh, I don't know if the camping's for me. The very first campsite we got to, and it was a hot day, and everybody that was in the accommodation could go and freshen up, and they all went to the pool, because this lodge actually had a pool. They don't all have pools, but they had a pool, and they all went and swam, and I was still setting up my campsite, and and then where the campsites were from that particular lodge was really far from reception, so then we had to walk quite far, and we're walking, and I don't know, maybe I was a bit naive, but I was like, I swear these are elephant footprints. And the one guy was like, yes, the guide said there's elephants here. And I was like, I thought he was joking.
Oh my goodness. So the elephant, so basically when you're camping, you're literally slap bang in the middle of wildlife.
Depends where.
Okay.
So not everywhere.
Okay.
So not everywhere. Some of the reserves will have fenced off areas. But the guides do tell you, and literally every campsite, and this is going to just show like my paranoia with wildlife, because wildlife, they have a mind of their own, they just walk through. And everywhere we went, and I was like, so what is the most dangerous thing I should look out for here? And every time the guide looked at me and he was like, people are the most dangerous. So I was like, okay, but what else?
Very true. That's probably very true, though.
It probably is very true, because the biggest thing is knowing how to respect the animals in their environment, right?
Yes.
So
because technically you're intruding on their environment. They're just in their space.
Exactly. And like you hear stories about this, but I honestly thought that they were joking when they said that the elephants came through the camp. So I got into the tent that night, my first night camping, and I was dreaming, we were talking about dreams earlier, and I was dreaming that the elephants were leaning on my tent.
No.
No, I got up in the morning and I walked around, there was no footprints around my tent. So I was like, definitely was
You were
dreaming
safe.
that.
You were safe. It didn't happen. It was just a
It
dream.
didn't happen.
I'm not going to get into the dream that I had last night. That one is purely about nervousness, but I'm feeling good. You touched a lot on guides. So I just want to get your opinion on why a guide makes such a difference to your tour.
Absolutely. I think this also goes with the hand in hand with the solo versus a guided trip. So for me, and having done solo trips to different reserves and having traveled on an overland tour, I can honestly say it is nicer with a guide, or it is always nicer because they are seeing things that you probably would miss. So I know, like it sounds crazy, but I've been on a vehicle before where the guide has gone, there's a lion under that tree, and I'm like, no, that's a shadow. No. And the lion is lying down on its side, and then it lifted its head up, and that's the only way I saw it. So if I was driving in a vehicle, I would not have seen that. I would have carried on driving.
Yeah, straight past it.
Exactly. And the similar things have happened with, of all animals, like elephants. They are huge, but they are stealthy. Like, they can move through the bush so quietly, and all of a sudden there's an elephant there. You could be driving and it could just step behind a bush and almost disappear. But the guides see these things. They know. So there's huge advantages. There's also the other advantage is you driving along on your own and you see a tree, but the guide will tell you a story about that tree and how the rock that's under the tree is related to that, and how the certain bird likes to land on that rock and use that tree, and why the tree is called that. You get all that information and storytelling that you wouldn't get on your own. You would miss all of that. So that's part of the experience.
I mean, I've had a couple of really amazing encounters with guides. You're welcome to share one of yours. My most memorable one, which I think is probably what made me fall in love with traveling through Africa, is I was at a lodge and we were going on our evening game drive. It was technically an afternoon game drive. We departed about 4:30. And we saw this pack of lions just lazing about. You could see they had eaten in the morning and they were full, and they were just would not even lift their heads to look at us. And then we carried on our drive. It started getting dark. As we were making our way back to the lodge, the guide was like, I've got a surprise for you guys. So I was like, oh, what am I going to see? So starts driving, we get there, and you're hit with the smell. And I was like, oh, what is that? And then we see that same pack of lions. And
oh, good. I was so worried.
He just captured a zebra, and the whole family is obviously now eating. And he's like, we're going to do something different. So he turns off his vehicle, he turns off his lights, he turns off his headlights, and it's pitch black. You're in the bush, it's pitch black, and all you can hear are these lions gnawing at this body of the zebra, and you're like, oh my goodness. First thing I was thinking is, what if what if they put the lights on right in front of me? But you really see how not only are those guys trained and they know what they're doing, but they rely heavily on their senses in a way that you wouldn't. And I was like, that is just crazy. And that is what made me fall in love with Africa.
And just sharing that about guides, and it's not something that I suppose people listening would know this, but a lot of our team are actually ex-guides. And it's so interesting and so often, and I think they laugh at me because recently when I went away with my partner just to one of the reserves for the weekend, and before I went, and it's a big 5 reserve, and I was like, what do I do if I come across a lion? And they literally were laughing at me because they were like, really, you've been ridiculous. And I was like, no, I need to know. I don't have a qualified person with me. Like, what do I do? Like, just don't run. And I'm like, I can't guarantee that because
that's true. Like, you never know what you're gonna do in that moment if you are gonna see a lion. This is why when I think about people going on walking safaris, I'm like, you have got guts.
Well, Didn't Jess just do that? So I think it's different people, hey? If it suits you, it suits you.
I wanted to just step in here for 1 second when we were talking about the guides, the guides, because you get the safari guides and the tour leaders.
Yes.
And how it comes into play when we were camping. So this picture behind me, I took in Botswana while we were at our campsite. So, but no fences. The elephants really are right there. It's phenomenal. I actually get emotional talking about it because it was such an incredible experience. But what was so nice was that we could sit here and take this time while our tour leaders, they were like making the lunch, just making sure that the toilets were taken care of, like making sure that our schedule was on time. And we drove into our campsite in the bush probably no less than 10 times. And every single time we came in, I was looking around, I was like, where are we going? Oh, here's our campsite. So the navigational, like you don't have to worry about lost in the bush, which is massive. These guys know the roads and the routes like the back of their hands. We spend a lot of time camping locally here, and I just know when I wake up in the morning, I've got to get all the food going. I've got to make sure that everything's neat and tidy. I've got to do the dishes. Whereas it's all taken care of. Okay, sometimes you get involved in dish duty, but I mean, generally it is so lovely to have the tour leaders and the guides and the crew just to really spark that extra little bit. And you can just take the time to really sit back and enjoy the tour and take in all of these magical experiences.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And like what you just said about the routes and them knowing the routes like the back of their hands, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of people getting lost for hours and hours when they've done a self-drive, especially in places like Botswana and Namibia, because there's actually no cellular signal in certain parts. You can't look at a map. So unless you know where you're going, you probably will get lost. It just delays your trip. It's
super scary. I can't imagine like driving on my own in the bush and figuring out where I need to go. I like having a guide telling me where they're taking us and where we're going.
They're going to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
As quickly and safely as they possibly can. So like there is a huge advantage to that. And they're probably going to see things along the way. Like with this recent trip I did, apart from seeing back, I did not see one big five. And it's a big five reserve. And I didn't even see elephants. And apparently they have 130. I didn't see one.
Wow.
So I feel like if I had a guide with me, I probably would have seen at least an elephant.
Probably would have been told you exactly where to go. But that's also the other thing is that a lot of people, when they come to Africa, they expect to see so many things. But sometimes you have to realize animals are animals, right?
Yeah, they have their own agenda. They really do. But I must tell you, like saying that, I've never seen so many animals as I've seen in the Okavango Delta within such a short space of time. Like you're driving in there and you like that picture that Jess showed of the elephants, like you are seeing elephants straight away, and it's kind of like they're like, okay, let's go find lions. And off you go for the morning, and then the two vehicles, because we had two vehicles between our group, and the one's radioing, the lions are here, So you've got those two people, they know kind of the area where they were last seen, and they'll go there, and one of the vehicles will radio the other ones, and then you're all going there. If you're on your own, nobody's going to be telling you that. So, massive advantages. And when you think you've seen it all, like we were leaving the Delta, and I've never seen anything like this in my life. We were leaving the Delta, and there was a pack of hyenas, and when I say a pack, there must have been about 10 or 20 of them. I've never seen so many. I've only ever seen one or two, and the first time I saw a hyena was like
I've also only just seen like one or two like by themselves, not really a pack.
They had a pack eating something. Possibly it might have been a baby elephant, but because it was rather large, but it was still not as big as an elephant. And there was vultures all sitting on a log, like looking over, waiting for their turn to get it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of surreal, because I've always just seen like a hyena kind of, the way they kind of walk, they're like stalking around, looking very disappointed enough, because they are, as strong as they are, they are really the underdogs compared to lions and other things. But just to see so many of them, like
It's almost like
incredible.
you're witnessing the circle of life take place. I mean,
Especially when you think like your sightings are done for the day, you know, you're heading
yeah.
out of the Delta and then you see this incredible sighting.
Sorry, Mishka, you said the circle of life. I literally had that song in my head the whole way. I was like, one day we arrived on a planet.
I didn't know we were doing karaoke today.
I can't help
doing
myself.
karaoke.
I can't help myself. I'm sorry. I'm out of here. Bye.
That's okay. At least you're bringing the flair in. I love it. In case anybody was wondering what our team is like, this is a perfect example.
And now I was
Yeah.
just thinking we should get some of the other singers to join.
Absolutely. Sorry, just on that note, I see that chat is not enabled for our guests. Is that correct?
The chat is for the co-organizers, and then the QA is for our guests.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if you guys have any questions, please pop it into the Q&A. We're happy to answer. As you can see, we love to talk.
Thank you.
You love to talk. And actually, I just remembered something about what Jess was saying when we were talking about the long days on the road. And because I've had this conversation recently with a client about books and things like that, like audiobooks or a Kindle or something like that. A client literally asked me, like, what books should I be bringing? Like, we want to do research, you know? And they downloaded the books for when they were going through Botswana and Zimbabwe and stuff. So I think there's a huge advantage to that too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This was saying that there's a chance for you, like when you're on an overland tour, you have more of a chance to head into your audiobook because the routes are so long. I mean, you could be on the road for like 9 to 10 hours. And in that time, obviously, you're probably going to take a nap. Well, I would probably take a nap. But you can't take a nap. You can read, listen to your favorite audiobook, catch up on your sightings that you've seen.
And you know, you said that and some people did nap on the one I was on. Some people were listening to the audiobooks, like you say. There was 3 or 4 of the men, every time they got onto a trip, were doing like a Sudoku kind of race. They handed up, say, they were all like, they had like these cards. I don't know who brought them, but what a great idea, you know. And then the 4 of them would get on and they would do like this like Sudoku challenge, see who finished theirs first. So there's so many like fun things to do to pass the time.
I love that you had such a competitive trip.
Me too.
If you weren't like racing to build your tents, there was Sudoku challenges. Like, how cool is that? But it also just shows you the type of people that you're going to meet on these tours. All of them are different. All of them bring so much life and energy into what you're going to experience.
And you're right. And not only do you have like the different cultures in Africa, you've got the different cultures on board for your trip with you because people come from everywhere in the world. So it's such like a mixing pot and such a nice way to learn things about people because even though you're learning about Africa, people talk about their own cultures and where they come from, you know, in their own cities. And some of the people that we traveled with have actually been to now some of the other places where other people were from because they wanted to go and visit those places. So it definitely opened your eyes to a whole world of travel.
That is amazing because so often you know if you're traveling somewhere, you're sitting on a train or if you're going on your flight, you kind of sit like this so that you don't have somebody. You just want to have your time. But when you're
in a little bubble,
you're sitting on a tour for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 days, you know, you really get time to actually make those real connections. And it's
because you
it's mind-blowing.
You get on a plane and you're like, don't talk to me, I just want to sleep.
And I mean, you know,
you can watch my movie.
Exactly. And you know, like, especially like I feel with the younger generation, because I do feel part of it, we tend to sort of put ourselves in this like, oh, I don't know if I want to socialize just yet. And we're all about our social batteries and you know, things like that. But I feel like once you're on a tour, all of that just goes out of the window. You could be an extrovert or an introvert, but like your true self comes out when you're on these tours. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah, it really does. And I think when you said that about younger generations, a lot of people prefer now to communicate through technology, you know, like through WhatsApp or other platforms. This forces you out of that bubble, but in a good way, you know, because you can still be the quietest person on the trip if you don't want to socialize that much, but you still are getting the same experiences, you know. So at the end of the day, it's your holiday, you know, you live it how you want.
Going back to the books and audiobooks, are there any specific books or audiobooks, songs, playlists that you guys would suggest for future travelers?
Oh my word, everyone should download like Johnny Clegg. I love Johnny Clegg music. He so much like South African history in his music, you know. I literally cried when he passed away recently, like in the last few years. I was like, oh, such an icon just for a lot that South Africa went through. But books, I still love The Elephant Whisperer, and I know it might be cliched. I'm sure most of the world knows about that book. It just gives you a really nice insight to the way elephants and wild animals are and how he built this incredibly great bond with a herd of elephants. Like, they're so intelligent. And the one I'm reading at the moment, which I'm enjoying more than I thought I would, is Whatever You Do, Don't Run by Peter Allison, who was a safari guide. And I hummed and hard, and I was like, oh, you know, because you can write this and it could just be like a factual book, but he's actually such a good storyteller. Like, it's so interesting the way he writes that from when I first started reading it, I was like, oh, no, I'm really into this. Like, this is fantastic, you know? But yeah, I mean, I could talk about books and stuff for ages, because not only are books on wildlife, there's a lot of books on culture and history. And I actually did, and I thought about this yesterday for some strange reason, I actually did an African literature course when I was in university. Don't ask me why, but there's a lot of really interesting books. And, you know, South Africa, she's passed away now, but Nadine Gordimer actually got a Nobel Peace Prize for literature, and she's a South African author. So there's a lot of really good authors and writing that comes out of Africa, which maybe isn't well known.
Can I just say Wilbur Smith? Like, it's
Wilbur Smith.
Not on Nadine Gordimer's like level, but I mean, for like a really good, get it into your, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I probably need to branch out more because I'm a fantasy girl, so I like read lots of fantasy. Really, very rarely will I pick up a book about safaris or things like that.
Well,
we should.
You just made an opening there. Maybe you should write a fantasy book on Africa.
Ooh.
that sounds like a good idea.
I don't think there is one.
That is so awesome. Has there been anything like that really stood out for you on a tour? I mean, I know you told me yesterday about a donkey boiler.
Right.
Yes. I'm so curious about how it works. Like, I've done the whole bucket shower thing. Not a fan. I've done a normal outdoor shower at a lodge. It's okay. But like a donkey boiler, just the name alone is just so intriguing that I just need
I feel like it needs an explanation, because I didn't know what it was either. And like I said to you, I pictured they had this donkey like walking and pulling something that was heating water very manually, but it's got nothing to do with an actual donkey. It really is just a pot of water that's heated over the fire, and that is basically the geyser. So the water heats and it comes through the pipes. So it's good. And that's maybe something that might put people off of the camping option, because you might have some campsites that are like that with the donkey boiler. And if you don't get there first, you're having a cold shower, which is probably fine in summer, but in winter would not be as fun. But yeah, it works really well, actually. I recently went to a campsite that had one and no issues.
Awesome. Sounds really interesting. I just don't understand why they would call it a donkey boiler. I think that's what's getting to me.
Maybe because it's more manual. I don't know. You know, donkeys are always like, they're like really like the hard workers in the farmyard, aren't they? They have to like pull all the carts, and they're really strong little guys. So maybe something to do with that. But who knows? Yeah. I mean, what else did we hear about donkeys yesterday? We heard about donkey tongues and donkey something else.
We did hear a lot about donkeys, which was weird.
I must say, going through Botswana was quite a thing. You know, like, I probably shouldn't say this here, but I came from a new collective of words for donkeys, and it's the depression of donkeys, because
Oh.
These poor little donkeys, they basically make that country go round. Everybody has a donkey, and the carts come and go, and they carry everything. But like donkeys' faces, like Eeyore, on
Yeah.
so you just get this donkey face, and they just look so sad, and you just want to cuddle them and hug them. Oh, they're the cutest little things, man.
They really are.
I did feel like I needed to Google donkey boiler though, but this description is very long. But it does come from somewhere replacing horsepower to donkey power and auxiliary winches and stuff. Just the fact of the donkey boiler is so much more fun though.
Yeah.
And Mishka, for the first time ever, I think I have to disagree with you. An outdoor shower at a lodge. Hey,
I don't know, like, come on.
At a lodge.
I don't know.
Yes.
I think I'm to a new age, guys. I think I'm to a new age.
She's thinking the bucket shower is like on a campsite or something, when you're in the middle of nowhere. That's what
the bucket shower is
feelings
not
are.
they can never get the temperature of the water right. Never. And
Do you like a really hot shower?
There's not enough water coming out of that bucket.
Well, bring on the donkey boiler, because with the donkey boiler, you have to make sure that somebody goes like half an hour before you and starts the fire.
Yeah, at
And make
least
sure
you
that
get
you're-
somebody's water when she did.
Yeah, like the night when we had it in Namibia, I was like, this is fantastic. Like, this worked fabulously. I don't know what they're talking about. What do they mean a donkey boiler? Like, it works great. And then the other guys that were camping were like, gee, the shower was cold. I was like, oh, I used all the hot water.
So we actually got a question pop up, which is great. Thank you, Mary. So Mary would like to know, what is the difference between an accommodated trip and a camping trip, please? Especially when groups traveling together, is there too much of a split in group?
So everything the group does is together. So apart from the ones that are in accommodation going off to their rooms at night, they still come back and eat at the campsite. Everyone eats together. Everyone's doing everything together. So apart from physically where you're sleeping, you probably wouldn't feel too much of a difference. Yeah, so the main difference is obviously accommodation is usually everywhere would be en suite. I mean, I can't imagine that they would do it any other way. Whereas the camping, you're obviously sharing facilities and putting up your own tent. So that would be the main differences. Apart from that, the group is always together. Saying that, there are also youth camping tours where some of the accommodation is a little bit mixed and you might be more like dormitory style, but that's usually the youth tours and maybe aren't as popular because most of the ones we're doing are kind of those combo ones where it's some camping and some accommodated. An advantage, not really an advantage, I would say I would probably opt for accommodated myself. Having done both or having experienced both ways, I do think it's nice being able to drop your stuff and freshen up and actually just explore a bit. Because the lodges are really nice. The places that they stay are really nice. There's different things you can see. And the other thing is I'm putting up my tent and you're at a campsite where, and this is important to some people, you might not have Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is in the lodge. So then you're having to walk there. So you're having to put up your tent, walk all the way there to send a message to somebody at home and tell them that you're at your next destination, and walking all the way back and you're out of signal again. So I think when you're in the accommodated, it's probably a huge advantage if you want those things or those little extra tweaks and luxury, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing is with all tours, if you're a solo traveler, you likely would be paired up with somebody unless you're paying a single supplement. So that's also important because if you're not comfortable sharing, you need to also factor in that you would need to pay the single supplement.
That's a very good point. I mean, people probably don't obviously know that. Like, they're probably thinking, oh, I'm a solo traveler. They're probably going to put me in a tent on my own. And it's good to know that, they may not be that opportunity.
It's also subject to availability because they might only be able to accommodate a certain number of solo travelers per group. So if you're booking really late, you might have to share because they might not have enough rooms or tents or, And I must say in a tent, although they are big, you can definitely fit two people comfortably. It is nice having that extra space just to put your bag and spread out a little bit. So having if you are going to do camping, I would say where possible, try and get your own tent.
Yeah, definitely.
Just for that space. It can be a bit cramped otherwise with 2 people's bags and 2 mattresses.
Speaking of space, I'd really like to touch on how much luggage you're allowed to carry. And
That's such a good question. So it's something that comes up a lot, and a lot of people will bring their full-on suitcase because we always provide the pre-departure information and we guide people on luggage, but really a duffel bag or a soft shell bag is the easiest. I would not go more than 20 kgs. 20 kgs is what airlines take anyway, but bearing in mind you are picking it up and taking it on and off the track, so the lighter you can do, the better for you. Most of the trucks have your own locker. So you just have like your own little lock, so it needs to fit in that space. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, doing camping, had a duffel bag, I had a sleeping bag, and I had a little memory foam pillow that I rolled up. Fitted great. I got that all into that bag. So you might think that you're restricted, but you're actually not. Some of the people had traveled with those little travel soaps and they just like maybe washed the shirt every other day, hung it up. It dried by morning because the air is like dry and hot. Even in winter, things will dry pretty quickly because we do have a very different climate. So people did that and they just washed a few items, and that kind of kept them going without having to take huge amounts. And I think even one of the team members just said that they've got a client currently traveling with 7 kgs luggage.
yes, I was like, I wish I could be that light of a packer.
I know, like the most amazing packer in the world, because I definitely couldn't get mine down to 7 kgs.
Definitely. I mean, I'm just thinking about our upcoming year end, and I'm like, how am I going to fit my entire makeup bag in my bag?
How big is your makeup bag?
It's pretty big, but I'm probably going to have to condense her.
You don't take your whole makeup bag on an overland tour, okay?
That's probably true. It's probably true.
Like ladies might just want to pack like a little bit of powder and like eyeliner, mascara, but you really don't need it because
I mean, if I do go on an overland tour, I'm pretty sure Jess is gonna put me on one pretty soon. I'm probably gonna go barefaced because I'm like, these people have never seen me before. It's okay if they see me barefaced. Just gonna go in all natural because I am going into nature.
Just remember, you do still need to take photos of yourself. So
are you trying to say my bare face is not pretty?
I'm trying to say mine wasn't. And then Jess kept saying, well, why did you wear sunglasses in every picture? And I was like, I was hiding my face.
That is so true. And I was trying to find pictures to like promote the webinar. Every picture I saw of you had these big sunglasses, and I'm like, can I see this girl's eyes?
Yeah, I'll send you some new ones. I think I've since Jess pointed it out, I've been trying.
Awesome. We've actually got a question. I think Jess has answered the accommodated one from Eileen, so that's great. Thanks, Jess. We've got another one from Christopher. His question is, how long before the trip can you book, and is there internet connection?
Yes. Okay, so you can book basically as soon as the tours are out. So we have up to the end of 2025. Some operators have released 2026 dates. So as far in advance as you like, not a problem. Even we do last minute, it can get challenging for you because obviously last minute your flights are going to be more expensive. So that's something to consider. Flights generally open up for sales 10 months before. So maybe 10 months is a good mark for looking to book a trip. But yes, I mean, literally a week or two ago, when I was out, Michelle helped one of my clients book her last minute Gorilla Trek, which is something we try not to do because the Gorilla Trek passes are harder to get, but fortunately there were some available still. So yes, anything from a year, a week, it doesn't really matter, but I would just say bear in mind flights. Internet's pretty good. You've got Wi-Fi in most of the lodges. The only places where you really would struggle for internet, and you'd probably have like a day downtime or two, which I actually found surprisingly refreshing to not have connection. It was a little bit of a surprise because I wasn't expecting it, but we went into the Okavango Delta and there was no signal there. They don't have cellular towers. It's very raw nature. It's the most amazing experience. You'll also find places like if you're going through Etosha in Namibia, the lodges have, but in other parts of Etosha, they don't. It is part of their initiative for anti-poaching. So a lot of the big reserves will have that because they don't want people communicating with outside sources. So that's something to be aware of. But in the evenings, lodges, reception areas, you'd have. So
Awesome.
there's also some people do eSIMs because they want to stay connected. So I know that there's different eSIMs that are offered for different countries. There was a German guy that I was traveling with, and he had connection all through Namibia.
Wow.
Like, he didn't have an issue. The other German girl used a different eSIM company. I'm not sure which one she used. She had it a little bit spotty in parts of Namibia, but she had no problems in South Africa or Botswana.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it really just depends, and just check your providers and which countries they cover if you did want to do an eSIM.
And then one more question from Christopher. What about toilet breaks on the road? Because obviously we've said that like some of the journeys are quite long. So how are we going to relieve ourselves?
So they generally try and stop every 2.5 hours or so, or 2.5 hours. They do stop for lunch. When they stop for lunch, they try and stop somewhere where there maybe would be a facility. Obviously, depending on the route that they're doing, they will try to do that. Without getting into too much detail, I mean, I suppose I can, but it will sometimes...
Words bushy will become
Bushy.
So it is important to know with adventure travel, and bushy is the term for there's a big bush, ladies to the right and men to the left type thing. So it is something to bear in mind. Honestly, because they are trying to stop so frequently, I didn't find the toilet thing really an issue. I was also a bit concerned because I was like, well, what if I drink a lot of water and then I just need to go all the time, you know? But it really wasn't a big issue.
Awesome. All right,
Sorry,
guys.
can I quickly just, with regards to how long before you can book the tour, what is really quite special about this period right now is that you get access to like early bird deals for 2025, and you also get last minute deals for the rest of 2024. And you know, with all this, everybody chatting on Instagram and Facebook, everybody just wants to be like at the migration, where they just want to be, you know, exactly in the place at the right time. And what tends to happen is that you just get loads of vehicles and you're sitting in queues and traffic jams. If you can try and get onto a shoulder season and just try and get into those periods where you're not sitting with a full truck of people, you know, if you have a 24-seater, maybe you have 10 or 11 people booked onto the tour, you each get double seats. And it's like, for me, it's such a game changer to be able to get into that period of travel where, you know, the weather these days is so inconsistent anyway. You don't know what you're going to get. If you travel, the weather's supposed to be absolutely perfect. You could get weather that is inclement. Whereas if you take a chance and go off shoulder a little bit, you get great deals. You get fewer people on your tour, and also with less vehicles around. Often on safaris, the shy animals come out and they show their face, and you get to have incredible experiences. So I know that's not exactly how long before the trip can you book, but in terms of sort of
when to travel.
Seasonality, yeah. And
I must say, like, sorry. I was just going to say, I'm seeing more with people, with it being starting to be more spread out, where people are starting to look at those other seasons more. Like, we've got a lot of people interested in December time, and I've had a lot of people interested in January, February, because it's nice, like, for weather. It's nice for those sightings. If it's going to rain, it might be like short shower, like a little burst, and then it's, you know, it's done. So, yeah.
That's the other thing about Africa is that there's a perfect season for every type of travel. Like, Africa is that one destination that you can go to at any point of the year, and you're bound to have an awesome experience. And that's one of the best things.
Yeah, definitely.
Just head further east or further north, 100%.
Yeah, and I've traveled at all different times of the year, and I can't say that I've preferred winter over summer, or or summer over winter. Like, I don't think any of it is more. I would just say make sure you've got sunblock even in winter, because some of the days are so hot anyway, and then the nights get cold. So if you've got a good jacket, like, you know. And even in summer, I'd still say take a windbreaker, because sitting on a 4x4 vehicle and just driving, that wind is cold.
Yeah, even in summer. It's a little bit icy. It does.
It's going to be hotter than you expect it to be, and it's going to be colder than you expect it to be.
Yeah.
So just pack for every eventuality.
It's
Sorry,
it's a bit of everything.
Totally. My one little packing tip was a multi-port USB hub, because at your seat you get like a little USB charger. But because I wanted my Audible and my audiobooks, I took an extra phone so I could just have that connected to my headphones. And I could charge my camera, my 2 phones. I had headphones that I was charging, and so my little multi-port USB thing was, I just became everybody's best friend, because everybody wanted to use the multi-port.
Who's most popular on tour? You're like, me. Yeah, I would say everyone. If we're going to talk about packing items, definitely the head torch thing, because I took a small handheld one and it was really difficult trying to balance eating at night time when the sun had gone down with this little torch. You know, people with the headlamps were able to just eat, and just walking around is just easier, having your hands free like that. And also a scarf. Scarf is the best packing thing to bring. It sounds so strange, but I don't mean like a thick woolly one. I mean one of those thinner kind of pashmina type ones, because when you're driving on the 4x4 vehicles and the dust blows up, you want to cover your nose and mouth. And also when the sun's coming down, if you've got like a shoulder out or a knee out and you want to just put that over you because you want something light because it's too hot for, you know, full length clothing, that's like a perfect thing just to block the sun a bit. So that I landed up using more than I thought I would.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for all of your tips. You guys are really, really good at this.
I know, we can help you pack for when you go.
I'm definitely going to need help.
And also, on the majority of the tours, you actually might leave the truck for a day or two. So if you go into like a camping area or into an area that isn't accessible by the truck, they'll take you in on safari vehicles. So what you need to do is you need to pack out of your main bag and then pack into a smaller bag.
Yeah, so it's definitely a backpack.
So bring a little day pack as well, so that it has enough space. You can get your toiletries, a towel, a change of clothing.
I have a question about that. So if you're leaving the truck, which is obviously like purpose-built truck, your kitchen and stuff is in there, what do you do when you leave the site of the truck? Like in terms of food and stuff? What do you end up bringing back?
They'll take the food along, and they'll take your camping equipment. And so actually, I mean, so the camping tour that I did, they took extra vehicles that were just full of chairs, tents, stretchers, and like, so I did a 16-day camping tour, but in that 16 days, we actually only ended up putting up our tents about 4 times.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Because we were driving, the support vehicles actually went in and they set up the tents for us. In some of the places, they had permanently erected tents. And this can also actually happen on a lodge tour. If you're on a lodge tour, you may stay in a permanent safari tent, which the consultants can guide you on whether this is something that you'd like or not.
And actually, to be honest, that's better than a brick room, I think, because it is a room. It's a full canvas tent room with a double bed or whatever. Yeah, but it adds to the authenticity of the whole experience.
100%.
So it's actually nice having that mixture of accommodation like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. I don't know if we've got anything else to cover. If anybody has any more questions, you're welcome to send us a question or anything of the sort. But do we have anything else, ladies?
I just wanted to apologize for coming in here as a co-host.
You know that you actually registered, so you registered with your work email and you registered with your Gmail. So you were supposed to log in with your Gmail to be in
I know, and I tried and I failed. Apologies. But
I see that Louise raised her hand 4 minutes ago. I'm not sure if you have a question or if there's something that you'd like to ask.
I didn't know you could raise a hand.
Oh, I see. Is it necessary to have an extra airbed?
No, you don't need that at all.
Okay.
Louise is actually doing a camping trip with us.
Hey!
Yes, so she's doing a camping trip in February, and you don't need an air mattress or anything. On that particular trip, you would get given a foam mattress, and if there are fewer campers, well, when I say foam, it is foam. They're actually really comfortable. I find them more comfortable than a stretcher bed. If there's not that many campers, you can actually even double them up if you wanted to. Probably wouldn't be necessary, but if there are extra, you just double them up.
There are some, yeah. Some of the operators offer stretchers and some of them offer the sleeping mats, and there are pros and cons to both.
Yeah. So I like the mat, but like you say, I think everyone's got a preference to both. And with the camping tours, just to note, you really only need your sleeping bag, a towel, and a pillow if you want one. Some people actually just roll up their clothes, but I can't because I like to have a comfortable pillow. So I bought like a memory foam one that is the most amazing. I think it's better than my actual pillow. It's just a bit small, so I don't put it on my bed because it's just like a little square. But it is amazing.
And a lot of people actually, or on a lot of the tours, you can, or up in East Africa, they have these beautiful blankets that you can buy, the Kenyan Masai blankets. So it's also quite nice to buy a couple of blankets if you feel like you need a little bit more warmth, and either take them home with you or leave them with your guide. And if you're in South Africa or Southern Africa, you'll get used to the name Pep. It's a brand here, and it's super cheap. And you can literally just pick up a pillow, pick up a blanket. I bought along a sheet, a fitted sheet, just to put over my sleeping mat. And that just felt much nicer because the sleeping mat is what would you call that material, Lee?
Well, I'd say like a pleather. It's not a leather, but it's like that kind of fake leather. It's like a fake leather. I had my sleeping bag underneath and over so that I didn't have to touch it. But a sheet probably would have been really amazing because now that I think about it, when I moved, you can kind of hear that noise, you know. Wasn't too bad though. I was surprised at how warm and comfortable I was. Cool. Apart from thinking that there was elephants around my tent on the first night. And they weren't.
Sorry, Louise.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you're going to the questions.
Yes, sorry. Just a few follow-up questions from Louise. Okay, so is a telephone card needed, and how do we get one? So let's start with that one.
Mm-hmm. So I think the eSIM, I think we got a link for one. I can dig that up.
Yeah, there's Irola.
Irola, is that what it's called?
Is Louise going to Namibia?
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't work in Namibia.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. That one guy I traveled with, his worked, but not everybody's did work. So yes, eSIM is an option for most people. Otherwise, the Wi-Fi within the lodges when you are in those spots works pretty well.
And Irola works for most of the other destinations.
Awesome. Yeah. Then, do you recommend vaccinations?
For Southern Africa, there's nothing that is compulsory. So, but for East Africa, a yellow fever vaccination for anyone that's going there. So Southern Africa, no compulsory vaccinations. But I would always recommend chatting to your travel doctor anyway, because they might recommend having something additional. You know, and every country is different. I mean, I remember when I was telling you earlier that I lived in the UK for like a year. Before I came back, they told me to have a whole lot of vaccinations. It really just depends.
And then how much cash is recommended?
That's a really good question because most of the tours, the majority of them will include a lot of meals. If a meal is not included, I'd say maybe 10 to 12 US dollars because you might just want to buy something like for lunch or something like that. But most of the tours, you're going to have meals included anyway. Physical cash is difficult to say because you might not want to travel with too much cash, but you can also withdraw additional cash from ATMs, and guides will show you along the way where there are ATMs to withdraw cash from. The big thing to remember is South Africa uses rands, Namibia uses rands and their own Namibian dollar, so they will accept the South African rand. Botswana and they use Pula, but the thing is you don't want to go and exchange it because there's nowhere else you can use it. So you really want small amounts of that. So withdrawing from an ATM, if you need any at that time, is the best way to do it, because you don't really want to carry a lot of that. You can't change it back anywhere. And when you get into places like Victoria Falls, you can use US dollars, you can use your leftover rands if you want to get rid of that. They'll take euros. The lodges will often take euros or US dollars, so you have got flexibility with different currencies.
So can I also just jump in, Lily? I found that for most of the activities, we are able to pay with them quite easy with a credit card. So you can look at the fees. You can look at the fees and stuff. But I mean, for me, just in terms of not having to carry too much cash, that was the best thing. But for tipping your guides, it's important that you do have the notes have cash, because that is pretty much, you literally, as you're finishing the activity, you give them the tip. And so that's also something to try and remember, is when you're going on the activity, to take the cash with you, so that so you can tip them as you leave. That for me just took a bit of getting used to, because I never carry any cash with me, and I had exchanged. I had got some dollars beforehand, but I hadn't. So I'd made allowance for what I needed to pay along the way, but I hadn't taken into account the tipping for the guides, particularly when you get into the extra activities, like when you go into the Okavango Delta for a day or two or whatever, or if you go into Tasha and you're with an external safari guide, so you're not with your tour guide will also be with you, or your tour leader, but you'll have a specialist guide in those areas, and then you need to just make sure that you've got the right tip there for them too. And the tipping guideline for somebody who was sort of a camp assistant, or somebody, just like assisting, the guideline was $4 to $5 a day. And then the guideline for a qualified safari guide was between $8 and $9 per day. But it's totally at your discretion, and whether you want to or not. And you'll see with the groups, often it becomes a discussion, and you can either do a group tip or you can do an individual tip, but it is totally up to you. But it is something that is expected, I guess.
Or really encouraged.
Yeah.
It really helps the local economy.
It does.
But as far as spending, if you were talking shop, there's not a huge amount of place to shop along the way, but it is nice to always buy some of the local curios, and you might find drinks aren't included, so you might want to buy a drink or a cool drink or whatever. Or at the lodge you might want to buy a glass of wine or something, so that sort of thing is good to kind of budget for.
And then just a question for Lee, also from Louise. Any idea how many people are on the group in Feb?
I will find out. But I know when I last checked, I think there was about 4 or 5. It was a guaranteed one, but I will double check, because they've probably had more since then, and they are out the office today, so I'll only get a response on Monday.
Awesome. I think we guys have done amazing. This has been an awesome one-on-one. Well, 1-on-2.
And actually, I just thought of something, and for Louise as well, since she's here, I've got a nice template that I'll send you that's just got some daily spending and things that you can budget for as well. So I'll send that to you.
Awesome.
Can I just check one more thing in here?
Of course.
If you are on tour and you're taking loads of pictures and you want to tell your friends and your family about it, we do have an affiliate program where if you refer somebody back to us and they end up booking a tour, we will pay you 2,500 Rand for that booking. So it's quite a nice incentive if you want to get sharing. You can just chat to your consultant about it. They'll give you all
if you want to be part of the affiliate program and share with your friends and family, definitely worth it, because there have been some people that have had quite a few referrals come through, which is wonderful.
And it's nice
for your next African holiday.
Yes, it helps you save for your next holiday. That's the best thing. So, And we love seeing clients' pictures, so please do share it with us. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, connect with us on Facebook, and I will generally be stalking all of you for all of the images anyway. So if you see an email from Mishka, we love your images, it's me.
Mishka, professional stalker.
I think I learned from Jess. Jess is way higher.
I'll make a matchmaker, but you go with stalker.
I just want to thank you two for putting this together and putting all the work together and really preparing for it. And you've done
You're welcome. It's always lovely speaking about experiences in travel. I think it's just something we're so passionate about.
Really is, and this is going to become a regular occurrence for AOT because this is what we're
Mishka
doing.
and I are meeting once a week just to chat.
And it's amazing. All of our attendees are still here. It's fantastic. Thank you guys for listening to the stories and joining us. It's amazing.
Thank you guys again.
Yeah,
the recording will be available on YouTube in a few hours. If you have any further questions, please feel free to pop Lee an email, myself or Jess, whatever works for you, and we will be there to help you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.